nice and loud. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome here to Fort Lee's East Gymnasium, the setting for this big North American Division showdown between the visiting Dumont Huskies. 4-6 on the season take on the Fort Lee Bridgmen, 9-2 overall in the 2023 regular season. Well, everyone, and welcome to our broadcast coverage of Fort Lee Athletics here on the Fort Lee Athletics YouTube channel. I'm Dan Long, so glad that you could join us again for another edition of Bridgmen Volleyball. It's the second meeting of the season between these two league rivals. Back on September 11th at Dumont, Fort Lee won in straight sets 2-0. They won 25-16 and then 25-23 to pick up at that point their first win of the season. They had a 6-match win streak that was snapped recently by Cliffside Park, but since then, Fort Lee has rattled off 3 straight wins against Westwood, Rutherford, and Emerson. So they're going to be trying to keep the good times rolling here at home in their 4th consecutive home match before hitting the road to take on another league rival in Dwight Morrow in their next fixture. Kelly Sprangle D'Onofrio is the head coach of Dumont, while John Ziemba is the head man here in charge at Fort Lee. Dumont comes in off a win their last match, 2-0 win against Indian Hills. Fort Lee swept away a pair of opponents here at home on the weekend. They defeated Rutherford in 3 sets, 2-1, and then dispatched Emerson in straight sets, 2-0. Fort Lee's going to be in the home black, Dumont in the road orange, and Dumont will be serving to start off today's opening set. Now tipped over as Foster will play it up top. Frankel now trying to fade away. As Fort Lee trying to work it around the perimeter, and they get the drop shot right in front of the back line. And they'll score the first point. One nothing lead for Fort Lee, so service will go over to the Bridgmen. Emma Shellman, the junior, will handle that. And finished off inside. Dumont scores their first point of the afternoon. Sophia Mandalakis, number 22, was the one who hammered it home right in the middle of the net. So it's a 1-1 match here in the opening set. Service error into the net. Another point over to Fort Lee. Bridgmen extend their lead now to 2-1. Trying to get a piece of that one was the libero for Dumont, Kiara Horgan, but she actually served it back into the net, so another point for the Bridgmen. As it should be 3-1 on the scoreboard. Right now it reads 2-1. Now it's 3-1. Bridgmen with their largest lead at 2 now as Foster has that one finish off as the winner, as Horgan could not get to it in time. She got one hand on it, but then it carried him backwards, so it's a 4-1 lead, and Fort Lee's gone on a 3-0 spurt here to get a little breathing room in the opening vestiges of set number 1. That is served into the net. Service error, point over to Dumont, and the Huskies now back with the serve, trailing 4-2. Dumont in 3rd place in the American Division, a 1-2 divisional record so far this season. Fort Lee in 2nd place with a 3-1 mark. Foster has that one dribble off the top of the net. Still available for Dumont to get it up and over, and they do. Setting up Foster. Good save there on the near side by Dumont. But they mishit that one a little too hard and too long, and that ends up as a Bridgmen point. Fort Lee extends their lead back to 3 at 5-2. The Fort Lee libero, Bella Ploutz, number 1, will be doing the service. She had 14 service points against Dumont the first time around, and that one going a little too long for the service error. Point over to the Huskies. It's a 5-3 lead for Fort Lee. Getting to that one was Naomi Kim at first. And that drop shot does find eyes there in the back line as Fort Lee had vacated that area, so it led to the point for Dumont. Back-to-back points for the visitors, and they're back within one at now 5-4. Wasn't really a close opening set in the first meeting, but then a much more contentious second set, and was only won 25-23 by Fort Lee. Lout setting it up, Borisov. Good angle there, gave Dumont a little difficulty. Fort Lee setting it up, trying to get it up and over, but it ricochets into the top. And now it's a run here for Dumont of 3 in a row, and they've knotted up the score level at 5-5. This hit that time by Naomi Kim as she was trying to range down low to pop it up to her teammate. So service ace that time for Brianni Cabrera. 6-5 lead now for Dumont. They've gone on a 4-0 run. Foster trying to end that. Setting up Foster inside. She actually mishit it a bit, and that fooled everybody. She sliced only a piece of it. So they will give the point over to Fort Lee. Dumont was celebrating at first. I don't know why, but that was actually a point for Fort Lee, so that ties it up at 6-6. In favor of everybody here, including Dumont, was anticipating maybe a harder hit. But Foster just sliced it enough to get it up and over and drop shot in that opening area. As Dumont gets it over. Shulman is back into the match. Setting up Borisov, drop shot. A lot of miscommunication here, so now they're going to finally award the point over to Dumont, saying that it did in fact go out of bounds to the far side. A lot of conversation going on. They were checking in with the side officials that are the players, the reserves from both sides. Coach Ziemba thought that it might have deflected off a player last, but they said it cleanly went out of bounds, and then Fort Lee gets a point right back after Foster kills that one. 7-7. Dumont to the near side, deflected last touch off of Shulman. It's another point for the Huskies, so both teams trading the lead back and forth. So it's an 8-7 lead for Dumont now as Fort Lee has led by as many as 3, but then Dumont went on a sustained run of their own to take their lead that they currently enjoy. 8-7 here in set number 1. Borisov, without jumping, just gets it over. Dumont looking for their 5th win of the season. Fort Lee looking for what would be win number 10 of the year. Lout popping it up as Sarah Wong is the setter, trying to link up and facilitate for her team's offense. Foster trying to track it down, but goes out of bounds. Last touch off of Fort Lee, so the point for Dumont. 9-7 is now the lead for the visitors. Dumont's been doing a good job of just keeping it in play and forcing Fort Lee into maybe some mistakes. Morgan serving now for Dumont with their team ahead by 2. And that's a winner there that time for Fort Lee. Catherine Borisov now serving with the left hand. And that's going to be a service ace. Dumont vacated the area in the back line, and that just fell right in between a couple of Husky players. Borisov with the ace. Had 5 aces on the season coming into play today. Again, she goes for that back line. Dumont chases it down this time. Wong setting up. Foster charging forward aggressively. Borisov pops it up. Wong does a jump shot of her own, but it looks like she might have crossed past the midcourt stripe, so the point was awarded to Dumont. Huskies back in front this time, 10-9. Wong denied at the net. Menelakis doing a good job of using her size in front as a middle blocker. Shulman just pushes it over. The near side wing, Plout, full extension. Fort Lee tracking it down. Good hustle there by the Bridgemen as they keep it alive. Long volley here between both sides. Long set it up. Foster from the back line. Popped up. Dumont's done a nice job of their return game so far here in the opening set. Shulman just gets it over. Fadeaway shot, too long that time. That long point was won by Fort Lee. So after all of that, Fort Lee is back to within 1, trailing 10-9. Nice job there, and a credit again, Bella Plout. Full extension dive in the hardwood to save it. Mia Frankel also kept it in play. Shulman just had her serve dead in there. Nice job, but Dumont does manage to get it over. Foster slams it. Kept alive, though, by Dumont. Credit the Huskies. Their return game has been strong so far here in the opening set. And that is deflected. Last touch out of bounds off of Fort Lee last, so the point goes over to Dumont. A couple times it looked like Foster and company would be generating the easy kill, but instead Dumont had an answer to pop it free, pop it in the air, and keep it in play. There's Foster, has that one blocked away, out of bounds. Last off of Dumont. 11-11 your score here in an entertaining first set between these two American Division rivals. Foster spikes it home off the assist from Sarah Wong. And Fort Lee has garnered back the advantage, this time at 12-11. Fort Lee had a run of dominance in the last couple of seasons in divisional play that was snapped earlier this season with their loss against Cliffside Park. They had won 13 consecutive league matches in a row before the Red Raiders got their number. Foster setting it up. Frankel fade away, gets it to fall. And now Fort Lee's gone on a bit of a run here. They've trailed by as many as 2. Now they've taken a 2-point advantage, 13-11. Fort Lee has led by as many as 3 in the opening set. Service error into the top of the net. Bridgman lead by 1. Almost going to be 2. Went out of bounds to the near side. Point for Fort Lee. That was so close to having perfect location on the return by Dumont. So they were being handcuffed. Almost fell inbounds to the near side. Bella Plout will serve. 14-12. 2-point advantage again for Fort Lee. Wong setting it up. Foster trying to hammer it down, but a little too much strength that time in that offering. That goes long and goes out of bounds for Dumont point. 14-13 now. The deficit facing Dumont. That time a rare service error. Dumont has been doing a good job of forcing Fort Lee into scoring the points and not just committing errors of their own. That time Cabrera's offering and service was off the mark. 15-13, 2-point lead for Fort Lee as senior Bella Foster will serve. Morgan gets it over. Setting up for Foster coming off the back line. Just tried a little bit of a drop shot. Going out to the other side. Shulman just tries to fist it over. Wong, quick maneuver. Ricochets, pinballs in front. Still kept alive. Long rally here. Fort Lee trying to finish it off. Borisov. Lefty was trying to find them sleeping a bit. Drop shot is a good one. Great decision there by Dumont. And that long point is eventually secured by the visitors. That was big because you have that shift. It goes momentum. Fort Lee gets that. They grab their largest lead at 3. Instead, it brings it back to 1. Big turn of events there, 15-14. Punk set it up, Shulman. Shulman, good job there. Just had that one knock off the hands of the backline player. It looked like it was Rinchin Sherpa, number 16. Sherpa could not return it forward. 16-14. Fort Lee back to a 2-point lead. Service by Sarah Wong. And there's the service ace for Fort Lee, and they grow the lead to 3, and sensing this could be a danger point in this opening set, Dumont will take a timeout, as we'll take the timeout on the floor with them. So it's 17-14, the lead for Fort Lee, as you're watching the opening set of this Big North America Division Showdown here on the Fort Lee Athletics YouTube channel. (17-14), Fort Lee leading Dumont here in set number 1, trying to jump out to an early 1-0 lead in this divisional matchup. Wong serving again for the Bridgemen. They've never led by more than 3 so far in this opening set. Have a chance here to really extend their lead. Shulman, quick hitter there, as that is deflected off of Dumont last. But again, rather than just setting up and firing it down, going a little quicker tempo here, that caught Dumont a little flat-footed. So Shulman gives Fort Lee now the 4-point margin at 18-14. Fort Lee carving out some of the points now with Wong doing the service. Wong quickly deflecting it over. Shulman again, getting the benefit of having that trickle off the top of the net. Shulman's been impressive in front for Fort Lee, and now the lead grows to 5, 19-14. Bridgeman trying to kick it into another gear here. Take this opening set. Dumont on their heels a bit. Wong, Shulman. This time dug out in the back line. Foster will key it up. Sending it over far side. Borisov. Good placement there. Now the Bridgemen are starting to play like one of the top teams. Their lead swells to 6. 20-14 here in set number 1. Wong's been so good at just keeping it in play, forcing Dumont to get it over. No service errors. Wong quickly to Shulman. Shulman has them totally flummoxed. She is changing her tempo. She's changing in how she's able to just diagnose the defense, and sometimes taking a little more time to hammer it home. Other times just quickly getting it pushed over the net. And Fort Lee has benefited greatly. So again, the lead is now the largest it's been all first set long. 21-14 with the timeout taken on the floor. Dumont 4-6 on the season. As I said, that they just came in off a win in 2 sets against Indian Hills in their last match on September 29th. That snapped a 2-game losing skid that they had against Tenafly and Pascack Hills. Dumont 4-6 on the season, 1-2 in divisional play, and it's never too early to start to take a look at the playoff picture, certainly as we are now in the month of October. Dumont ranking 11th, or tied for 10th, I should say, in power points in North 1 Group 2 with West Milford, so they want to keep on jockeying for position. You get into the top 8, you could have a potential home match in the first round of the sectional playoffs. A win here would go a long way for the Huskies' chances of that. Trailed by 7 here as we're closing in at the end of the first set. Shulman has just been brilliant in front for the Bridgman. She continues to dazzle in just all different ways that she's delivering these finishes. Emma Shulman, who had 6 kills recently against Ridgefield Park, the junior middle hitter, has been getting the job done in front of the net. 22-14. Foster, a little flat-footed that time. I think she was expecting a little more velocity, and Dumont took a little something off it. And it curled just in front of her before she could extend down low to get to it. 22-15, finally that long run produced by Fort Lee is ended by Dumont. Now the Huskies hoping to go on a run of their own. Borisov, that had some serious heat on it. Non-returnable that time by Sherpa. 23-15. As Borisov doing the job, and now she will serve here with her team 2 points away from capturing the first set. Again, a lot of English on that delivery. You could see the spin rate on the ball. Shulman had that trickle off a Dumont player at first. Now they do get it over. Foster trying to dump it over that front line. Wong saving it. Shulman tapping it forward. Good volleying between both sides here in this crucial point. Frankel gets the points, and it's now at set point for Fort Lee at 24-15. So after Fort Lee was in a bit of a slow start to this one, they've really kicked it into another gear. 24-15. Borisov. Bridgman a point away from capturing the opening set. Foster over to Wong. Wong setting up Shulman. Shulman, quick dropper. Now Dumont trying to preserve themselves and stay alive in this opening set. Frankel blocked near the nets. Fort Lee will reset again. Shulman gets it blocked again. And Borisov tried to dive forward to save it, but could not get to it in time. So a hard-earned point goes the way of Dumont. They trail 24-16. Foster. Wong. Frankel just could not be able to finish it off that time. Quick push over there by Wong. Shulman trying to finish it off inside, and it eventually does end up as a winning point for Fort Lee, as the Bridgmen will take the opening set by a score of 25-16. So 25-16 win for the Bridgmen. Early on it was back and forth, kind of midway through that opening set, but then Fort Lee went on a run when Sarah Wong was serving. They pushed their advantage to insurmountable option and then finished off again 25-16, the identical score that they won the opening set in their first meeting of the year against Dumont back on September 11th. So we'll take a little time out here as both teams switch sides. Fort Lee leading Dumont 1-0 as you're watching Fort Lee girls volleyball action here on the Fort Lee Athletics YouTube channel. So we start to move our way now to set number 2 here inside East Gymnasium at Fort Lee. Dumont in their road orange, Fort Lee in their home black. Fort Lee now leading Dumont 1-0. They capture the second set. They will capture the match and improve to 10-2 on the season. Dumont trying to force a third set. Maybe put themselves into a position to have the come-from-behind victory on the road. Fort Lee will start off with service in set number 2. As that time it was Emma Schulman serving it a little too long, so the point will go over to Dumont, and the Huskies will take an initial 1-0 lead. Riley Graham, number 19, will now serve to try to extend this Husky advantage. Loud popped it up. Foster was trying to sail in, just couldn't get to it in time. Foster sends it over, nearly dropped it in between the front and back lines. Little misplay in the net on the far side, and it's going to be a point, the first one of set number 2 for Fort Lee. After Leanna Krug was not able to get to it just in time for Dumont. Blocked in front and sent down by Mandalakis. Lena Krug now serving with Dumont leading 2-1. Kind of handcuffed that time, Naomi Kim. Nobody there to help out for Fort Lee, so it's a 3-1 margin now for Dumont. Huskies never led by more than 2 in set number 1. Taking an early 2-point advantage here in set number 2. Charging at the nets. Getting the points was Foster and Fort Lee as it was a double hit. Bella Plout serving. Almost led to an ace. Dumont just got it over in time. Foster, oh, kept alive by Krug. What hustle there, falling to her back to save that. Pounded in front, and Dumont eventually scores the points. Looked like for sure it was going to be a kill for Fort Lee's Bella Foster, and somehow, some way, number 12, Leanna Krug, did an outstanding job of returning that one. Borisov. Dumont leading by 2, 4-2. Borisov, a little tricky there, trying to change things up. And Dumont struggles to get it over that time from the far side wing. Point for the Bridgemen, who trail by 1, 4-3. Again, both teams were neck and neck with one another in the opening set. It was about like 8-8, 9-9 before Fort Lee really started to distance themselves and went on a prolonged run that would lead them to create a 25-16 win. Good touch there on that drop shot by Scarlett Santana, number 7. Santana scores the winner. 5-3 lead now for Dumont as the Huskies go back to service. Jenny Scagarella now serving, number 26. Foster to that back line, pops straight up. Again, Dumont's done a nice job of their return game throughout the course of this match. We saw that in the opening set. Borisov, two-hand just pushing it over. Good volley between these both sides. Borisov lining and firing that time. And Dumont unable to return it. Another finish there by number 4 in black. Bridgman back to within 1 at 5-4. Couple of Huskies combining there. Nice finish once again by Santana. So Santana has come into this match and has made her impact felt. Scoring a couple of winners here in the last couple of possessions, and it's now a 6-4 lead for the Huskies. Again, Dumont needs the win this second set in order to stay alive in the course of this match. Sherpa with the service. Foster just popping it up. Borisov could not get it over, so this is now the largest lead of the overall match for Dumont. They never led by more than 2. Now it's a 3-point margin, 7-4. Shulman. Foster over to Borisov. That was going deep. Might have been going out. Dumont didn't want to take any chances. They kept it alive. Trying to get to Shulman. Shulman was the difference in that opening set. Again, Dumont playing great defense. Another long volley for the point. Borisov. Exceptional finish and placement there with a pair of defenders flanking to the net. She still had the ability to cut it, and the lefty finished with a much-earned point there for Fort Lee to pull back to within 2 at 7-5. So sub coming out. I don't know if it was potentially an injury or a contact lens situation, but player coming off the floor right now, it looked like it was number 12, Leanna Krug. So she'll come off. And now Fort Lee with the service, down by 2. Immediately serving to the far side. Dumont doing a good job of racing to it, but they could not combine to get it up and over the net. That time again, Borisov just served right at the new player that came onto the floor. Again, serving that same general direction. Frankel has it ricocheted and blocked a little bit near the front of the net. Inside, deposited for a point by Shulman. Fort Lee with back-to-back points have pulled back to within 1. Now it's 7-6. Dumont just getting it over. Pinballed around. A little difficulty here for the Huskies. Fort Lee operating a little quicker now defensively. Frankel getting it over. Both teams doing a good job of getting dirty on the floor and finding that spacing. Santana has it bounce off a couple of players. Frankel again. So they're going to say a violation as Frankel might have crossed past the midcourt stripe and underneath the net. That'll give Dumont the point after that long sustained point, and now it is should be a 9-7 margin. As that's a miss hit right in front of the net for Fort Lee. So Dumont trying to build back their lead here in the second set. As Krug is back onto the floor for Dumont after, again, she was at 10-2, might have had some blood on her finger. Tipped in front and sent down. Manolakis getting the job done. Back to a 3-point margin for Dumont at 10-7. Fort Lee won 25-16 in the first set. Took care of business around this point and juncture in the match. Dumont playing with a little more sense of urgency here in this set. Plout diving, tried with the one hand, but now it is a 4-point deficit facing Fort Lee. Coach Siemba has elected not to take a timeout. Momentum clearly on the side of the Huskies. Kara Horgan, and that leads to the ace as Foster has that bounce wide and out of play, and now Coach Siemba will use his timeout as the deficit has grown to 5, the largest lead for Dumont in any set so far here today. 12-7 lead for the Huskies as we'll take the timeout on the floor as Dumont's trying to win set number 2 to force a third and final deciding set. See what type of adjustments Fort Lee can make. They've fallen behind by 5 now, 12-7. In danger of potentially dropping the second set. Well, Emma Schulman, she got the message loud and clear. She quickly tipped it over and scored the point. Again, Schulman was the difference in that opening set. She kind of took control and took over in the front of the net for the Bridgmen. Pulls Fort Lee back to within 4, and now she'll be entrusted with serving. Job of popping that straight up with Schulman. Foster, as that's popped skyward by Dumont. There's Schulman from the back line. Back to her from Plout. Tries to go down this near side wing area. Manolakis. She's the size element, and there's Foster just searching out the defender who is falling to the floor already. Back-to-back points now for Fort Lee. And the Bridgmen back to within 3 at 12-9. Trying to go on a run here in the midway portion of the second set. Over in time as Plout gets to it. Foster! No chance of returning that one. 3 in a row for Fort Lee out of the timeout. 12-10 as Schulman continues to serve. Top players for the Bridgmen starting to kick it into another gear. Manolakis. Frankel. The far side. Foster got an initial piece of it, but didn't get it cleanly, and then it came right back down to her, and she couldn't return it. So that 3-0 run is stopped by Dumont. They take back a 3-point margin at 13-10. Diving effort there by Kim. Foster, drop shot, nice save in front by Graham. Foster, blocked there at the net. Manolakis. Not phased at all by Bella Foster, coming with a lot of velocity. Had that blocked right back at the Fort Lee senior. Lead is back to 4 for Dumont, 14-10. Huskies managed only 16 total points in the opening set. They're now at 15, and the lead again grows to 5. Largest lead of the set, tied again by Dumont as Sophia Mandalakis has started to assert her dominance in front of the net. That time, no answer for the heat that was delivered down the line by Bella Foster. 4-point lead for Dumont, 15-11, but service now going back over to Fort Lee. Can the Bridgmen go on a run here and make this one tight as we're getting closer and closer to the finish line of set number 2? Foster got it over. Horgan did a good job of defending against it. Kim getting low. Frankel gets that blocked, ricocheted backwards. Dumont trying to track it down. They just get it over. Manolakis was thinking one thing and Foster thought another. Good deception that time by number 23 in black. She set it up like she was going to go over to the far right side. Instead, just softly dropped it into the left side. Back to a 3-point deficit for Fort Lee. Foster mistimed her jump that time. Mandalakis was camped out in front. 16-12. Once again, 4-point lead for Dumont. That one just tipped a little bit up and over. Mandalakis, again, she's become the dominant force in front here in the second set. So much as we saw Emma Schulman be the one who took over the match in the opening set for Fort Lee, it's been number 22 in orange here in set number 2. Mandalakis playing exceptional volleyball. Fort Lee struggling to get that one returned. They can't. And now it's the largest lead at 6. 18-12. Dumont closing in on taking the second set and forcing a third set. Blocked in front again. And the Huskies in control, 19-12. Krug serves it short into the net. Service error gives the point and possession back over to Fort Lee, but they have work to do. They're down by 6, 19-13 here late in the second set. Fort Lee does lead 1-0. They opened up with a 25-16 win in set number 1. Foster just kept alive. What a great diving effort by Horgan. They're going to say, though, that the officials ruling that that did touch the floor, so a point over to Fort Lee, despite that great hustle play by Kira Horgan. So Kira Horgan not able to save that point. 5-point lead for Fort Lee, or 5-point lead for Dumont. Borisov, good hustle, but Foster couldn't get to it with the left hand. 20-14 lead now for the Huskies. 4-6 on the season. They've played only once to 3 sets in this season. They won in 3 sets against Bergenfield back on September 14th. Borisov. That's popped up by Krug. Cabrera got it over. Foster, good placement there. Great accuracy going cross court with the diagonal finish. Fort Lee last played to 3 sets here on Saturday. Defeated Rutherford in 3 sets, 2-1. Down by 5. Have to go on a run here, a sustained run. Foster just skimmed that one over the net, and it eventually leads to the ace. 20-16, back to a 4-point margin, as Foster once again will be on service here for the Bridgmen, as she takes time to just tie her shoelace and now is good to go. That was a beautiful serve on that last ball. It just went over the top of the net. Caused all sorts of trouble. You can see that low lining serve. Oregon tumbling. Goes to get to it and does return it in time. Shulman, a winner to the far side. Good placement there, so a couple more points for Fort Lee, and that's going to necessitate a Dumont timeout, as they don't want Fort Lee to build in any momentum here. They've crawled their way back to within 3 at 20-17, as Dumont closing in on a win in set number 2, as you're watching girls volleyball action here on YouTube. Fort Lee going on a run here late in the second set. Still with work to do, but now that deficit that was as much as 6 just a couple of moments ago, down to 3. Might have been going a little long, but Dumont elected to go at it. Shulman, again, a quick hitter. Throws it out in front. Foster popping it up. Santana back in the front now. Borisov try to pop it down the near sideline. Dumont does get it over. This is a crucial point in this second set, and that point's going to go the way of Fort Lee. Shulman having that one off of the arm of the Dumont player. Now the lead is down to 2, 20-18. Good fight back here by the Bridgemen. Foster, what a low lining serve, and another ace. It's down to 1, 20-19. That serve just has a way of clearing the top of the net and then just dies. It just falls down and really makes life difficult for the returners. Dumont trying to recapture a 2-point margin. Fort Lee now with the possession here. Chance to tie it up. Fadeaway shot. And that's going to be ruled out. Out against Dumont. It's now 20-20. So Fort Lee trailed by as many as 7 in the second set. They have clawed their way back to draw level at 20-20. And a chance now to serve for the lead. Sent over. Here's Foster popping it up. Borisov, again, always trying to deceive. A little deception. Foster setting up. Here's Shulman. Shulman gets the point, and Fort Lee has taken the lead at 21-20. So Fort Lee has gone on a run here. Momentum clearly on their side. They're now trying to not only take the lead as they've done, but now thinking about possibly taking this match. Santana. Pair of Bridgemen combined in. Borisov as Horgan saves it. Santana again with Foster popping it up. Shulman looking to go to that back line. Dumont with good defense. Borisov, outstanding hustle. Foster gets it over. Jams it into the hands of Krug. And Dumont unable to get it up and over. It's going to be another timeout called by Coach Kelly Sprengel D'Onofrio, as Fort Lee is feeling it. Again, once down by 7 midway through the second set, they have now taken a 2-point lead, and they are 3 points away from capturing this overall match. The road ahead for both sides. For Dumont, they will head back home to host the Paladins of Paramus Catholic on October 4th, before they then hit the road for 3 in a row against New Milford, Cliffside Park, and Ramsey. And for Fort Lee, the road ahead, they will travel to Dwight Morrow on October 4th in their next match before they're back home here on October 6th to host Memorial. So Fort Lee trying to zero in on what would be their 10th win of the season. It's very similar to the first matchup between these two sides. Again, in that first matchup that Fort Lee won in 2 sets. Fort Lee won the opening set 25-16, then had to hold on late to win 25-23. They also won the opening set here today, 25-16. They trailed by as many as 7 in the second set. They've now come back and taken a 2-point lead, and they're closing in on a potential win, 3 points away. Foster still serving, and she serves the ace down the far side. So right out of the timeout, Foster just dynamic in her service game here today. She had 6 service points against Dumont back in the first meeting. 23-20. Back to Foster. Morgan pops it up. Fade away to the far side, pushed over by Dumont. Here's an opportunity, Borisov trying to go to that diagonal corner. Shulman mistimed the jump a bit. Much needed point for Dumont. They could not afford to be falling behind by 4 and get to match point. So now they trail by 2, 23-21. Coach John Ziemba will call for the timeout. Talk over strategy with Fort Lee as his Bridgman trying to earn a 25-point finish here, and in the process, manufacture a nice come-from-behind victory to win in 2 sets. But Dumont still, they're keeping hope alive that they could claw their way back and force a 3rd and final set here today on the road at East Gymnasium. Fort Lee's trying to keep their hopes of winning another divisional crown alive as well in the process here. Fort Lee's held a piece of the league title for the last 3 seasons. They want to try to keep pace with Cliffside Park. Red Raiders sitting atop the standings, perfect 4-0 in league play. Knowing that a matchup looms on October 16th here at home against the Red Raiders. Dumont trails by 2. 23-21 as they serve. Shulman gets Fort Lee to match point. It's 24-21 as the Bridgman will serve with a chance to win the match. Sarah Wong, the sophomore setter, will serve. A chance to win the match here for Fort Lee. And they lay off it. That goes long, and Fort Lee, once down by 7 in the second set, have fought back and have taken the match. 25-21, Fort Lee wins in both the first and second sets. They will defeat Dumont for the second time this season. Dumont with the defeat will fall at 4-7 overall. Fort Lee with a victory will improve to 10-2. So a valiant comeback there, cashed in. And Bella Foster, a big reason why her service game was on point in that second set comeback. So that'll do it for our broadcast coverage here from East Gymnasium. For everybody here on the Fort Lee Athletics YouTube channel, I'm Dan Long saying so long, and we'll see you next time here for Fort Lee Athletics.